Laura's Gift by Annmarie O'Brien, Chapter 12, The Hunt. Eventually the sledge came to a stop. "Wolves up ahead, 2 of them," the Count called from his horse. "Get the dogs into position." "One of them looks like the Red Thief," Papa added, and then came the blast of the horn to signal through the dogs that the wolves had been sighted. Alexander pantomimed for me to stay down and covered my head with a blanket. I hardly risked Papa's wrath to stay completely hidden. I poked my head back out from underneath the blanket and prayed Papa would one day forgive me for disobeying. Lined up at the edge of the sledge stood Beastry, followed by Sila and Bori. How I wished it were me holding their lead. Sila was first to see the wolves in the distance and gave a little yelp. Her feet danced with such excitement the others danced too. "Oolaloo! Tara! Tara!" With those words, Alexander slipped the lead, and one by one the dogs plunged into the untouched, powdery snow from the sledge. As they coursed and cut through the snow, with Bori in the lead, running as fast as the north wind, bits of snow sprayed from underneath their feet into the air. If it weren't for their black noses and the champagne-colored patches along their rumps and backs, I would have lost them from sight against the snow. Papa clucked his tongue to get the horses moving again, to follow the dogs. Poor Tsar, how he cried to be part of the team. It was how I felt, too, watching him struggle to free himself to join his litter mates. Alexander brought him up to the front of the sledge and tied Tsar's lead to a hook in a triple sailor knot. It took all of Alexander's strength to restrain Tsar. He pulled so hard. Within seconds, the dogs thrust themselves in the midst of the 2 wolves, trying to separate the Red Thief from its new mate. Now there were 4 wolves, and the pack seemed to be growing, trickling out from the woods with bristled manes, growling and baring fangs. Was this normal? I wanted to ask Alexander, for something felt very wrong. Papa whipped the horses and they picked up speed. "The dogs need Tsar," Alexander called out. "Tsar will only get in their way." Papa answered. "Father, our team is outnumbered," Alexander persisted. "Bori can handle it, son," the Count said. Papa pulled the horses to a halt. They bucked and reared and neighed in fright, but Papa regained control with a jerk of the reins. The wolves circled the borzoi. From opposite ends, the wolves took lunging turns at them. Waves of snow flew into the air as the borzoi leaped and squirmed to avoid the attacks. Bori tried to lead a way out for Sila and Beastry. Every time he found an opening, the gap closed. There was nowhere to turn. The circle had tightened and closed on them. Suddenly, the Red Thief charged the dogs, followed by a mass of wolfy gray and silver from all angles. 2 of the borzoi emerged from the attack, hurtling over the tangle of wolves as if they had wings that carried them. The 3rd borzoi lay in the snow. I recognized his piercing cry, "Niet!" Not Bori, not Papa's favorite dog. The Red Thief had Bori by the throat, while the other wolves gnawed and attacked at his legs. Sila and Beastry tried to help Bori. Each time they made an advance to rescue him, they were received with curled lips, snapped at and pushed back. There were too many wolves. "Do something!" I wanted to scream at Papa. I couldn't bear to watch. At the same time, my eyes wouldn't close. Papa pulled out his rifle. He shot into the air. Boom! Some of the wolves scattered. The Count fired a second shot into the air. Boom! Fewer wolves dashed away. Tsar pulled and yanked with such force I thought he'd break his neck or open up his wounds if he didn't free himself. As the Count reloaded his rifle, Papa bolted out of the sledge and hastened toward the chaos of wolves and dogs. I had never seen him barrel through the snow in such panic. He cursed at the wolves, words I had never heard him use before. "I'll take the left side," the Count called out. "Stay here and get your knife ready," Alexander whispered to me. He grabbed a rifle and followed Papa and the Count. I pulled my knife out and got myself ready. Ready for what, I wasn't sure. All I knew was that I wanted to help too. If only I had packed a 4th rifle and knew how to use it. The Count took a shot. Boom! The first wolf fell. Papa reloaded his rifle and shot at the wolves on the perimeter of the tangle. Boom! One of the wolves yelped and sank into the snow. Others ran away. As Papa reloaded the chamber of his rifle, Alexander fired. Boom! Another wolf crumpled into the snowy whiteness. Like the devil it was, the red thief didn't frighten as easily as before. It stood over Bori, scarfing mouthfuls of the blood-soaked snow around it and swallowing with shameful pleasure. Surely they needed Tsar, but I kept hearing Papa's voice. 3 is the lucky number, not 4. All 3 hunters aimed their rifles at the red thief standing over Bori. They had a clean shot. Take it, Papa said to the Count. My son deserves it, the Count said. Somebody shoot, my heart screamed. Nobody dared, for Sela and Beastry suddenly rejoined the mix and lunged at the red thief. Papa raised his hunting horn to his lips and blew the command for the dogs to retreat. Sela and Beastry ignored the signal. Off, the Count ordered. Off, Alexander echoed. The dogs ignored their commands too. Bori no longer cried, nor did he struggle to get free. He just lay there. I had to do something. Sela, Beastry, off! I called in desperation. Beastry retreated first, followed by Sela. Papa glanced back at the sledge. Teatia, watch out! I shrieked. The red thief had stepped over Bori and slowly advanced on Papa in a crouched position, ready to spring. Papa aimed his rifle and took a shot. Boom! The wolf buckled on its back leg. Still, the big silvery red-tipped beast continued toward Papa, limping on 3 legs. As Papa reloaded, the Count took another shot. Boom! The shot grazed the wolf and it stumbled, but it recovered its footing. Alexander lifted his rifle, steadied it, and took a shot. Boom! Alexander's shot missed. With eyes locked on Papa, the wolf suddenly rushed at him. Look out, Tayatia! I warned, wringing my hands. Papa took aim and pulled the trigger. I heard it click, but nothing came out. He pulled again and again without results and quickly shifted the rifle into his hands, swinging it as if it were a sword, trying to keep the wolf back. The wolf circled Papa. It was so close to Papa, neither the Count nor Alexander could get a clean shot. Trust my gift, I kept telling myself. It rang through my mind like a pealing bell in a blinding blizzard, leading me home. When I couldn't bear to watch another second, I untied Tsar's lead and freed him. Get him, Tsar! The red thief is yours! Tsar tore off the sledge into the snow for the red thief, hitting it hard, knocking it to the ground. Taking Tsar's lead, Beastry and Sela followed and worked to distract the wolf, nipping at its back legs. Tsar and the red thief struggled for each other's throats. I expected the bullet in the wolf's back leg to slow it down. It only made the wolf angrier, and although the wolf was bigger, Tsar was quicker and maneuvered around its lunges until Tsar attacked with swift and powerful pluck. Tsar got hold of the wolf's throat and threw it to the ground. With such force, I heard a snap and prayed for a broken neck. While Tsar pinned the red thief by its neck, Beastry and Sela each caught hold of a hind leg. Molodets, Tsar! I yelled. Papa kept staring at Tsar. His face was not filled with anger, like I had expected it might be, but of fear, as if a ghost from his past haunted him. Alexander rushed to the dogs and thrust his knife into the red thief's heart, stepped aside and called the dogs off. Beastry and Sela released the wolf and limped to Alexander's side. Tsar stood over the red thief, his chest puffed out with pride. Pools of courage filled his dark almond-shaped eyes. My first vision, it had finally come true. Happy and relieved as I was, I couldn't speak, and I just stood there taking it all in. Papa rushed to Bori, collapsing to his knees beside him. He placed his ear next to Bori's heart. He's dead, Papa said through muffled cries, holding his stomach like someone had punched him. I had never heard Papa cry before. Papa gently picked Bori up and carried him across the field, dotted with dead wolves. Sela and Beastry trailed behind him like nervous shadows, sniffing at Bori's dangling feet. Splotches of red against the champagne white dappled their silky coats. Tsar joined them, his head carried low. Alexander shook his head with grief. I'm so sorry. Then he joined his father, the Count, to collect the dead wolves. The wolves that had gotten away resumed howling. Their cries of grief gushed upward in powerful, heart-wrenching rushes and mirrored what stirred inside of me. I turned to gather the leads to secure Sela, Beastry, and Tsar, and a gray wolf jumped onto the sledge, baring its fangs at me. Coiled up in a hunched position, ready to spring, the troika of horses yoked together started to nervously buck and kick. Gospodi! I took a step backwards and nearly stumbled. Be brave, I thought. Wolves prey on fear. I gripped Alexander's knife more tightly and thrust it at the wolf, hoping to scare it off. It didn't scare. Lara, stay calm. I'm coming to help, Papa called, cradling Bori close to his chest. Me too, Alexander yelled. Boom, boom. Their shots into the sky didn't spook the gray wolf. Instead, they angered it. Just then, Czar jumped onto the sledge and surprised the wolf. The two of them snapped at each other back and forth until Czar plucked it by its throat and flipped it hard on its back. A loud crack followed, a broken neck, a dead wolf. I collapsed to my knees in relief as Papa, Alexander, and the Count rushed to the sides of the sledge with their rifles aimed at the gray wolf. Molodets, Tsar, Alexander said. You got him. I'll hold my aim just in case, Papa said to Alexander. This one's yours. Take it, son, the Count said. Lara deserves the honor. Alexander said. She isn't capable, Papa barked. Tayatya, you're wrong. I stood with my knife held out in front of me. Certainly I could slit the heart of a dead wolf. What's Lara doing with your knife? Papa asked Alexander. You can do it, Alexander said. I mustered all the courage I had. Good dog, Czar. Now off. I was afraid I'd accidentally stab him. Czar didn't obey. He held on to the gray wolf. Off, Czar, I said again. Again. Czar didn't disobey. And then the gray wolf attempted to wriggle free. Czar held his grip and didn't let go. You were right to disobey, Czar, I said to Czar. You'll need to pierce through the ribs to get to the heart, Alexander coached. Cautiously, I approached the wolf. We're losing time, Papa said. It wasn't until Papa started to climb onto the sledge that I was moved to action. I swallowed a lump of fear the size of an iceberg and thrust the knife into the wolf's heart. Blood spurted onto me, onto Czar, everywhere. You did it, Alexander cheered. You were right about Czar, the Count teased Papa. What a nuisance. I put my arm around my Knight of Knights. We did it, Czar. Papa leaned over the side of the sledge and patted Czar on the head. You've done good tonight, boy. You've done good tonight, too, he said to me. But you disobeyed me. I had good cause, Tayatya. The reason is unimportant. Little blue veins popped out on Papa's neck. You don't belong out here, and there'll be consequences. Papa's shoulders slumped. He retrieved Bori and lifted him from the snow stained in blood and placed him on a blanket in the back of the sledge. Papa brought his hunting horn to his lips and kissed it 3 times. Then he blew into it, long and low, to warn the kennel hands back at the stable that the hunt had gone bad. Papa climbed up onto the sledge, buried his face in Bori's fur, and lay there clutching him. Then Papa covered Bori in a blanket and made the sign of the cross. You're in God's hands now. The Count and Alexander dragged the dead wolves and lifted them up onto the sledge, stacking them one on top of the other. There were 5 of them. Had it been worth it? The red thief had so much blood in his mouth, Bori's blood. I couldn't bear to look. If only I had found a way to save Bori. It was my fault for not speaking up. The guilt and hurt that I felt was raw and exposed, as if one of my legs had just been chewed off. I covered the rest of the wolves with blankets to purge them from my thoughts. And that's the end of chapter 12.